What's going on right now with the University Library of Virginia in terms of setting a date when your papers will be ready?
You mean at the library, they now, as of yesterday, sent me notice that they've hired additional people, that they have made it the #1 priority, that they are guaranteeing that everything will be ready by the 1st of January. And if I'm not mistaken, they said something like 13 people will be working on it. And a lot of people would feel good by that. But it still doesn't answer the question that should be asked, and that is, why now? And why has it not been prior to this time? If you look on this wall here, you see me with about 6 other governors. Every one up there has had their papers finished. And I will say to you, at least 3 of those people in that picture were elected after I was. So the question is, okay, fine, so you're going to have it ready by January the 1st. But that still doesn't answer the question as to why you started on anyone else's before you started on mine. They finished those and haven't even started on mine. My assistant, Ms. Baker, called it racism, and I have echoed it. It was and is racism. So when you speak about 2020, is racism alive? Yes. Racism hasn't gone into place, and it won't go into place. You have to fight it on a regular basis. And by regular, I mean, I remember getting something from a fellow who was in the penitentiary. I represented him. And he was considering all of the things that were going on, perhaps not even guilty of the crimes that he was supposedly committed, not any serious crime, but, and he said to me, he said, how can a man be free when the ogre of bigotry pervades his every waking moment and then pirouettes through his dreams for plaudits? And so that's from a prisoner to me.
Whoa.
Oh, I remembered it, as you can see. I'm not reading it to you. What he was saying, in fact, is racism is as American as apple pie. We started in racism. We have endured it, and we're struggling through it. The only answer that you can ever give for anyone relative to my papers or anyone else's papers is that it was a difference associated with mine. And what could the only difference be explained? Race.
Now, if you look at what's going on here at Virginia Commonwealth University,
yes,
you're talking about racism here also in terms of what's going on.
Yes. Well, I don't need to tell you.
The larger audience don't know.
I understand. I don't need to tell you that the president of Virginia Commonwealth University wrote an op-ed piece in the Richmond Times-Dispatch and said that he wanted to be certain that we had a coliseum, $1.5 billion coliseum, that the city of Richmond would have to commit to, taxpayers would have to pay for. Blocks of property downtown would have to be committed to what is called a TIF, Tax Increment Finance District. No monies could go to anything else but for this for years. But good news for y'all, and this is from the president of this university. There's going to be $300 million set aside for black people, contractors, minority contractors, $300 million. When I read that, I said, that is not only untrue, it's illegal. The Supreme Court of the United States had already decreed in an opinion in 1968 from Richmond versus the city of Richmond had this case and said, you can't set aside money for any groups of people. This is taxpayers' dollars, no color, no anything else. If a student had done that, he'd been put out of school for plagiarizing. So not only was it illegal, it was untrue. If you have a situation like that unaddressed, where's the board? The board said nothing about it, yet students would get put out. We have had 150% turnover in black faculty at this school in the last 2 years.
What?
Yes. The president was asked a question about that at a symposium and said nothing to it. Oh, I can tell you some other things that have gone on at this university as it relates to me. In terms, I went through 2 years of hell, as you know, with claims against me. I've done this, I've done that, I've done the other. And when it was finally decided, well, we ain't got nothing. When I said, wait a minute, I thanked the panel, I thanked everyone else for doing what they were doing, and I said, it's over. The school put out something, well, the governor's remarks may be premature. Premature? No, they were not premature. You had hoped something else would come about. I've lived for all of these years and not a single blemish in my record. And all of a sudden, this school named for me that I'm going to be held up to ridicule, embarrassment, and shame. And then after you've done that, you don't say one thing other than my remarks were premature. Stay tuned.
Where are we with your legacy?
A legacy is no more than the individual associated with it and the spirit associated with that individual's dreams, fulfillments, and aspirations. I got a letter from a young man the other day, and I'm going to publish it, and I'm going to put it in my Wilder Visions piece soon, one day this week. Man from Michigan, and he wrote and he spoke of the numbers of things that he had read, the kinds of things that he was inspired to do, the reasons that he felt that, and he started ticking off the numbers of things that he knew that I had done in my administration as it related to people with disabilities, as it related to minorities, as it related to jobs, as it related to, you name it. And he ended it by saying, and I am autistic. And I've taken the time to tell you this to show you what an inspiration you've been to me. Now that says it all. I'm going to give you a copy of that letter.
Okay.
So where we are with that, as far as I'm concerned, I'm in the history books and fourth grade history in Virginia, history books in Virginia. But our people, American people, have not learned the history of America. People have not learned the history of Virginia. When last we were together, I was of the impression that that's what we were going to be talking about in Hampton at the convention center.
1619.
1619. I wanted to show why we have nothing to celebrate, because we have not really shown that 1619 was an advent for some to enjoy a new life, a new world of freedoms. one that has been denied to far too many people today.
Governor, I can only speak for myself, but what I see going on now, especially on Monument, I need to find out your thoughts, because there is no conversation between leadership and the protesters. And what is being said in the media mostly is not true.
I understand that.
What can be done in terms of bringing leadership and the protesters together for conversation, for dialogue, instead of talking at one another, to talk to each other and have a meaningful conversation?
Well, first of all, leadership must be of the people and for the people and by the people. And as you correctly pointed out, there is no leadership. When you spend and waste millions and billions of dollars, as I pointed out with the commitment of leadership to this Coliseum piece, with education, schools dilapidated, salaries of teachers not there, who's being hurt most by this COVID other than those at the bottom rung of the economic ladder? And so it's easy to say, okay, we're going to take, so if you took down every statue and removed every trace of it, then what would you do after that? And that's what you're talking about.
Correct.
Where do we go? Where have we been, and why not? And when you say, well, I'm going to do this, thus, and so, are we going to appoint a commission to do this, that? Wait a minute. Do you know what America's about? Do you know who Americans are? I refuse to be categorized in terms of a corner. I'm not a black American. I'm an American. I'm not African American. I'm an American. I am as much American as anyone else because I fit every description of what that person is supposed to be, born or naturalized in this nation. And so when you look at the history of slavery, there's no noble cause. There was nobody fighting for some cause which was good. Looking at the movies that we look at today that were published, Going with the Wind, oh sure, it got an award for it. To demonize people of color? When you see the Mantan Molins and the Willie Best stopping around and MGM is still showing those movies on a regular basis, that's education.
Birth of a Nation.
Yes, and that's purposeful. When we have all these Virginia presidents, Woodrow Wilson was one of the worst presidents for people of color that you could have ever had. I said that when I was lieutenant governor at Rutgers University, and they wanted me out of there. They said, what is he up here saying? And someone had to tell him. You're absolutely right. So, yes, it's one thing to take the statues down. It's another thing to have a commitment. If I had to ask you, and not to put you in any position of embarrassment, but can you name the organizations now that are fighting for the kinds of things that we've been speaking about for the last 40 and 50 years? What? Where are those organizations?
Where's SCLC?
Gone. Where's the local NAACP? Go. Where are your voting groups? Gone. And when you got a guy that says in the White House, if you ain't black if you got to think.
Where?
Did you hear what I just said?
Yes, yes.
I'm talking about the guy who wants to run. If you got to think about whether you're going to vote for me or not, you ain't black.
Something wrong with that picture.
Something's wrong with it. I can think in a damn time I want to think.
But nobody's saying a word. Why?
Why are you surprised? You were there when we last gathered in Hampton, and you heard what I tried to say. And I was cut off by the mayor because I was saying too much. And he's lucky I didn't grab him by his neck.
If things don't change,
they'll remain the same.
not only that, I can foresee a race war. I can see, because of gentrification, people that been living in the neighborhood, and you got the newcomers coming in, and they can get tired. somebody can get hurt. Somebody can get busted in the head. And there's going to be another George Floyd.
Well, here's where we are, and you and I need to own up to it. Where are the people who look like you and me today in terms of what it is they've done and what it is they do?
And where are the churches? That's another story.
It is unfortunate that we had places in our communities that we would go and could go and gather and legitimately and freely discuss problems and have the support system of the churches and everyone else. I don't believe in adulation. I don't believe in the honorable this, thus, and so for those who are elected nor anyone else. I think that we are servants of the people if we are in positions of authority. And I think that we have lost so much of it that our youngsters have nothing by which to emulate nor to learn from. And that's the difficulty that we're having in our society today.
As of yesterday, the police were down at Monument doing code violations for food, for sofas, whatever. They're not talking to them. Somebody out there is going to get hurt because they have the 9mm, they have the AK-47s, and it don't take but one person to go off, and it's going to be a mess. And I see it coming.
Well, I go back to what I was saying to you before. In the absence of leadership, you're going to have that. In the absence of people coming to understand that if your house isn't safe, if my house isn't safe, then how can yours be considered safe? If I've got to get on a bus and go 20 miles or halfway across the world to work, and then when I can't get to that job because of something or another, look at what I would call the effects of the pandemic on education. No one has a plan. How can you have a plan when you haven't even tested the people? In Virginia, we haven't even had the people. Oh, and then we were testing two different things. We were testing what the antibody would do as it relates to whether the symptom of the virus is there. Okay, and you mix those test results? And then when people start saying, well, why are so many people dying in these nursing homes? Or why did so many die in this particular one? And then why are those who are affected with certain already pre-existing conditions, diabetes, heart difficulties, and respiratory problems, and lung problems, you know they're going to be the first affected. And so if you know our system has produced people in ghettos and allowing it to continue, then you're going to have the spread. And the spread sometimes is an overreaction, people killing each other over nothing, shooting each other over nothing. Surely it's to be condemned. If you took every statue down across the country, where do you think we'd be then?
It's almost like saying Stonewall Jackson.
Yeah.
And I can't make sense out of this. The same day they took that statue down, they had lifted the moratorium on evictions. They spending $1.2 million.
Your point couldn't be more readily told. The same day they took the statue down, they said, you can put them out.
Where's common sense?
Common sense, and I said to this to you, there's only one word, the one word definition for politics that I've ever had, and I still have, is money. One word definition of politics. You follow the money, and that's where the power is. You take the statue down, but do you have any money to pay your rent? Is there going to be any money for next month's rent? Suppose the moratorium was still imposed. When are you going to be able to buy some food? When is this kid going to go to school? We know some kids going to miss school this semester and next semester. And then once they fall into that...
How do you catch up?
Yes. And so I blame all of us as leaders for not making certain that we deal with the issues, the real issues that affect us. Oh yeah, Donald Trump's done so much to harm so many things, but he couldn't do it by himself.
What are we doing?
Nothing.
Are we afraid? Are we scared we'll lose our money? Do we care?
I think this. I think it's not afraid of losing money. It's afraid of not wanting to offend anyone's feeling. I want you to like me, so I don't want to say anything that you might not like. I've never lived that.
Governor, you always told the truth.
You know me well enough to know.
You had morals.
I tried to believe that I was not there to represent myself. I was trying to represent people. And unfortunately, today's world, unfortunately, we have so many representatives that don't understand that George Floyd's words were merely the repetition of a people that had been saying for the last 400 years, I can't breathe. Life is slowly ebbing out of the bodies of so many people on a daily basis because they can't breathe. The stultifying air. The water in Flint, Michigan didn't just get poisoned overnight.
That's right.
It was there for times to come. Somebody knew it, but it wasn't important enough. The school systems didn't get all of a sudden to be so bad that they were crumbling. When are you going to start paying the teachers? We wouldn't even let teachers go to school in Virginia to get a master's degree if they were of color. They couldn't get into the colleges. And so, it's not a matter of reparations. It's not a matter of paying anything. The only thing that I have always believed in is get out of the rays of my sunshine. You take yours, but let the sun shine on me too.
Where are we with reconciliation? They're talking about doing a Department of Reconciliation through the House of Representatives. They want a cabinet.
Let me ask you this. And I call myself pretty much student of words. I thought reconciliation meant that you and I had to reconcile our differences. That's what I think reconciliation means. If that's the case, then what is it that I've got to reconcile with you? Tell me what it is.
Now,
Or you're going to have to help me out.
That is true. I didn't do nothing wrong.
What do you want me to do? Yes. So how in the hell are you going to talk about reconciliation? That's why I had to have the argument with Bob McDonnell, former governor here. I'm trying to do one thing with the Greater Yorktown Commission. He wants a reconciliation thing. I said, would you tell me what the hell I got to reconcile?
You the one that caused the problem.
What do you want me to do? What have I done to you? Have I cut off the funds? Have I stopped the jobs from coming? Have I said, no, you can't live here? Can you ever point to any of oh, well, you started a riot. Surely. You think I started it? Or the people who couldn't take any more?
I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
You're damn right. So, no, the reconciliation piece, you take it. I'm not interested. I'm interested in you doing what is right.
Well, I guess, first of all, the truth has to be told.
First of all, the truth has to be taught, and we have not done that. We've not taught the history of America to Americans, for all Americans to know it. It's not black history. It's not white history. It's the history of America.
The truth.
Yes, and that has not been taught. So you can't tell the truth unless you know the truth.
By saying that, the youth of the day, are they living in an illusion?
No, they're not living in illusions. They're living in a world that some of them have done a great job of discovering. Many of them don't even know the world that they're living in because it has not been taught to them.
How do we make this jail? How do we make this come together? Because if it's not, it's going to be a big division against the have and the have-nots.
It can only come together when the American people decide they want it to come together. And it cannot come together with an election and another election and another election. It can only come together when there's a national commitment. At the conclusion of the Kerner Commission reports,
oh my God,
Kenneth Clark wrote, and he said, I've been called upon to speak to all of these reports, the Harlem riots he spoke of, commented upon the Tulsa riots, and he said, in this Kerner report, unless there is a national commitment to improve education across the board, employment opportunity across the board, to make certain that taxpayers' dollars are spent wisely and not siphoned off, and that housing, affordable housing, is made available for people. Until the national commitment is made for those things, we will have continuing problems. And as of today, there still is no national commitment.
All right, let me ask this. Let's go back to that Kerner Commission report. Lyndon Baines Johnson, they came together, they put out the report. What has changed since then? Has anything been done? Do we need another report? Because the same thing's still going on what was in that report.
We don't need any more reports from anywhere.
So all they got to do is enact what was done.
You need. If you and I are sitting here and we are talking about what needs to be done, and if you tell me you know what needs to be done, and if I say to you, okay, Clyde, that's great, and you say, look here, I want to run for office, and I'm going to run because I know what you got on your mind, and I want to represent you. Okay, Clyde, you're there. Let me ask you, Sir Clyde. tell me the people, tell me the people that you can go to that you have put in these offices, whatever their color is, that can say, you don't know what needs to be done, then why are you there? Get out of the way.
Let somebody else be.
You are a hindrance rather than a help.
And it seems as if we got a lot of that.
The honorables, this, thus, and so. Oh, you don't know how bad it is. And yet you do. You know well how bad it is. You'd be surprised at the people that continue to ask me, would you please run for office again? No, of course not. For several reasons. There are people that I know in public office who can do a job and can do a better job and would do a better job. And this is from across the board, notwithstanding the color, if they were forced to do it. And the only way you can force people to do it is to let them know you can take them out. And you take them out.
That's something to think about.
I know it is.
Where is think tank? Where's the Wabash?
We don't have it. We don't have it. For instance, when they had a handful of legislators in Washington called the Black Caucus, when they first started, that small group got more done than what we have today.
Joint Center of Political Studies. What happened?
Gone. Eddie, gone. The National Association of Black Elected Officials, gone. Oh, let's stay right here. The Black Democratic Caucus of Virginia. Where is it? I'm not talking about the legislators.
Mm-hmm.
I formed the Black Democratic Caucus in Virginia, and you couldn't get in the room at 5:30 on a Friday in Roanoke when we had our first meeting. 500 plus people in the room. And we made changes. We got things done. Where is it today? Have you heard from it?
You and Robertson.
Yes. Bill Robinson. From
All right. It was few of you, but you got more done. How was that so?
Because we both understood the people. Simple as that. Bill had people, Bill and I were so close that if a reporter were to call him and to say such and such a thing, he said, yes, I know. And he said, well, Wilder said such and such a thing. What do you think? He would say, well, if he said that, he meant that. We were never at odds. If we had things to talk about, we discussed them.
And you didn't do it in public?
Yes. Never at odds. There's another fellow who was with us at one time, Fergie Reed.
Okay.
The first person of color ever elected to the Virginia legislature. Right now, let's look at what we got in Virginia.
Okay.
You got 1, 2, 3 people of color saying they're going to run for governor.
What sense does that
Wait
make?
a minute. Wait a minute. You got 2 in the same county. One said they're going to run for governor, the other one said they're going to run for lieutenant governor. Got little J. Jones says he's going to run for attorney general. So it means that this group, this group of persons is saying that Virginia, with 14% voting population, is going to have 3 black people at the top. No, of course not. Then why the hell can't y'all sit down and at least talk about one of y'all might be able to make it?
That's what I'm talking about in terms of leadership. We can agree to disagree, but at the same time, have a common agenda and come out with unity.
Well,
Is it planned? Is it bought? What is it?
I think the seeds of distrust have always been sown, as you know that.
Is that the Willie syndrome?
The Willie syndrome.
Any truth to that?
Yes. To the syndrome, yes. Whether it's true to the fact of it, I don't know. But I do know the syndrome speaks for itself. It doesn't.
True. Now, what has changed since you being the first black governor, African American governor in the United States of America? Where's the respect? Where's the honor? Where are your grandchildren that came behind you?
I know what you're saying. Well, I think, and that's why I said being number 1 means nothing unless there's another number 2. You see there, I've got DeVal Patrick right up on.
Okay. Yes.
And my point was, I'm so happy to see that. When he was sworn in up there, and that's when we were giving him an honorary degree at Howard. When I went up to Boston for his inauguration, I was the only person of color that would be called a national recognized leader. The only one coming, only one there. Just me. And I sat there, I said, I couldn't have, Mike the Caucus was there, he's from Boston. Several others were there. I said, what, my God? And the people are talking about, well, we're going to have this one, that one, the other one. The public has been left out. John Doe has been left out. No one gives a damn what these people think. All they want them to do is just register and vote. But like I tell you, why is housing so bad across the country? Why is education so bad across the country?
Is it the media? What part are they playing in the brainwash? Because I'm saying we're being brainwashed.
The media reports what it sees, and they report what they have to. They're two different things. If you force them to see what it is they have to report, they'll report it. If you don't, they won't.
I like the word you just said. You had to force them.
Oh, yes.
You got to call them out.
Yes.
We are not calling nobody out these days.
I've called hell all my life for that. Calling people out. Oh, Harlow, you're going to get in trouble on it. Oh, my God. Just like you pointed out about the VCU. For this man to have 150%
turnover
in faculty. And you know who said that? In his face. Our dean, who was a black woman. The dean of this school, Susan Gooden. She said that at a symposium we had, and he sat up there and didn't open his mouth.
Where's the outrage?
No, we had two black presidents sitting up there, one from Virginia Union, one from Virginia State. And they were told, I said, why can you guys let your names be associated with something saying that $300 million has been set aside from black people, which is a lie. Man, we're sorry we did that. You're sorry.
They're behind the doors, though, but not in public.
Now, that's what I was saying to you earlier. You got it. There need to be, and I demand it. So I think this, though. I see it. I see young people every day when I'm out and they write me, for God's sake, direct them. And I tell them, look, you don't have to be in elected office to be important or to be heard. But you need to be a part of what I call the politic, the decision-making process. You can't, you're going to make, wait a minute, I got to get in there. But open the damn door. Well, I want inside. When's the voting going to take place? Right now. Now, education, jobs, but one word only, money.
Now, Governor.
All right.
Yesterday, from Martin Luther King Middle School to City Hall,
right,
there was a protest.
Right.
What led the protest was a car with a person on top of the car with an AK-47. Led the protest to...
White person?
Yes. Led the protest to... No, that was a black female.
You're right.
They came down to City Hall. They did a lot of cussing. But what they did do, they had a sit-down teach-in of what needs to be done and make the change in government.
What did they say?
Well, they talked about civil review board, civilian review board, and they talked bad about a couple of people. But it's almost like saying they was having a dialogue, setting up an agenda. All right? But if you look at the picture, they were militant. They were militant folks. But their heart ain't militant. They don't know what. They don't know how to.
I know what you said.
They don't know how to talk to folks. And we do not have any seniors, any elders to talk to them, to give them direction. And it hurts, because I see
Wait
it.
a minute, but they have elected people.
They ain't there.
Exactly. But put the blame where it belongs. Put the blame where it belongs. Right there. Look at the people who say they are our leaders. Let me remember I talked to you about the $1.5 billion.
Yes, sir.
housing. When that was going on, you asked about the preachers. When that was going on, wait a minute, it's going to get better. When that was going on, they brought together a group of 50.
I got the video.
I hope you do.
I got the video.
I know you do.
I got the video in the church
And you
in Big
remember-
Bethel
You remember, yeah.
on 3rd Street.
Yes, indeed. The question was asked, well, what about education? And what were they told? That ship has sailed. Now, you saw it.
All right.
That
All right.
ship has sailed. But now, what accountability have they had to pay for making those kinds of statements? None.
None.
Why?
None. It's almost like saying do we care?
Why? That's my point. And yet you're going to come to me Saturday night and say, well, I gotta get up, I gotta go to church tomorrow. Okay, fine. What, are you going? I don't know. I don't think I'm going. What? You're not going? Then you know exactly what I mean. I don't have to say it. You can't win the argument. Not publicly. You know?
True.
Clyde, the bottom line and the ending line is leadership. And we don't have it.
And on that note, I would say thank you, Governor.
Always good to see you, buddy.
All right.
Thanks for everything.
Thank you.